What's going on, people in YouTube land? Kimchi Chris here, and welcome to today's brand new video. And for today's video, this is a part 2. This is a continuation of the video that I ideally, in a perfect world, released the day before this one was released. Hopefully these are back to back pretty quickly. And this is about the Atlanta KISS Expo 2018. So on the previous video, I talked about all the positives of the expo, and you really should go back and watch that if you're just joining us now, but you know, whatever. It was mostly about meeting Vinnie Vincent, the Q&A experience, the band Priss, Bob Kulick, and things like that. And there were a lot of positives there, but I can't ignore the negatives that were part of this event. And a lot of those do fall on the organizers of the convention, the expo, the event, whatever you want to call it. Now, as a lot of these things were happening, I was talking to people around me, and I basically was saying, I'm gonna rip these guys a new one online. I'm just going to give the worst review of this experience. I'm gonna, you know, talk about how bad this was, how bad that was, this, that, you know, but I decided to not make the video immediately because I was even considering doing it later that night in Atlanta, but I decided to let the thoughts kind of stew a little bit. And honestly, after I said all this, I had my Vinnie experiences after that, and got to see Priss play and some other things, and it started to give it a more positive vibe, I guess you would say, somewhat. You know, I mean, that stuff was great, and I kind of forgot about a lot of the negative things to a degree, but with that being said, I still wanted to make this video, and I would love it if the actual promoter of the event got to see this, because you know, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He wasn't too friendly to me, but I also want there to be a good KISS Expo in Atlanta. I want it to happen again. I know these guys are planning on doing more KISS Expos, and I want these to be a better experience over time for the KISS fans, for the promoter, believe it or not, for the guests, and honestly, I would love it if this video even made its way to people like Vinnie or Eddie Trunk and things, because I would love them to know kind of how their fans were treated for the weekend, because it wasn't super kind by the promoter. But I'm going to do this in a somewhat constructive way, or at least the most constructive way I can conceive for this, because I could just get on here and just be like, it sucked, that guy sucked. But, you know, he did do something that weekend that I never thought would happen. He got Vinnie out of hiding, and we got to meet him. We got the amazing 2-hour Q&A. We got the music performance, everything. So there were a lot of positives, but unfortunately, it's now time for the negatives. But I'm going to try to do these as constructively as humanly possible. All right, so negative number 1. And this one's a big chunk of it, honestly. The lines. The lines. Anybody that was there knows exactly what I'm talking about. The lines for this event were just insane. They were insane. They were ridiculous. I mean, there's no other way to handle this. It took 2.5 hours to get into the expo. 2.5 hours for an event that supposedly sold 900 to 1,000-ish tickets. Now, a lot of things we have heard rumors about already were oversold, and numbers were changed on the fly and things like that. Whatever. It should not take that long to get that many people in. Now, as I was in line, I was joking with my friends and people around me. I said, you know what? I bet when we get up there to the front, they're going to have one person sitting at a table with a stack of papers. They're not going to have a computer set up, and it's just going to be, that's why it's been taking so long. That's exactly what it was when we got up there. I'm not even joking. They had one person at a table handling getting all these people their passes. The poor girl was getting yelled at left and right. I think she was just a volunteer or a friend or something like that. I don't know. I can't really speak for her. But she just had a stack of papers that weren't organized in any way. They weren't even alphabetical by the people's names who ordered the tickets. They were by numbers or something like that, or credit card numbers. I don't know what they had as far as the organization method, but it was ridiculous. I mean, waiting in this line for 2.5 hours to get in. I mean, I saw people brave enough to yell at the cops that were in the line, and I saw even one cop basically tell one of the people that was yelling at him, like, look, I'm a cop. I'm not controlling any of this. I'm just here to make sure that nobody gets hurt, and, you know, I can find you the person to yell at if you want. I know who's running this disaster right now, but I'm not the guy, you know, and that's hilarious that somebody was brave enough to yell at a cop. It was also pretty dumb that the person thought a cop had anything to do with this, but it was just ridiculous, hands down. I mean, they were trying to form like separate lines for the types of tickets you bought, and then an autograph line was forming around the corner, and this and that. It was a complete mess. And as someone who has worked several conventions, several expos, several events, and has also been a guest at these things and everything else, there's ways to fix this, okay? There's ways to fix this. I know it's a much bigger entity, but even Dragon Con in Atlanta, which is a huge event, it's really, you can't compare the two of them, but I've never even waited hardly in a line to get my tickets there, and that's tens of thousands of people. But that's neither here nor there. But the line to get in was just, it was, you know, it was bad. It was bad. It was completely and utterly ridiculous. And there were even people volunteering to try to help him with the expo, because you basically had one guy trying to run everything with some volunteers and whatnot, it seemed, and it was falling apart in every possible way. And that was just the line to get in, mind you. Then there were the lines for the autographs and pictures with Vinnie. And oh boy, was that even worse. I'm just gonna throw it out there. Between the photo and autograph lines, I wasted most of my day there. I spent almost a full work day dealing with that line. That was, I believe, 7 hours or so that I was dealing with all of this, and it was just ridiculous. I mean, everybody was in line for the autographs, and a lot of these events separate the autograph and photo times, basically so you don't have your person doing so on these things switching. You don't want them to have to stand up for a picture, then sit down for the autograph, stand up for the picture, sit down for the autograph, stand up for the picture, sit down for the autograph, stand up for the picture, sit down for the autograph. That's hard to say quickly, but I just did it almost after the first time messing up. Anyways, so that's what they were doing. And at one point, they just decided to kind of change the autographs, even though there's a huge line for autographs. So they said, all right, we're doing pictures now. Vinnie's hands are tired, whatever. But they didn't even really announce it to the full line. It was actually someone else in the line that kind of echoed it down to us. And luckily, people around me held my place, as well as several others, as we got in the photo line. And once I got in there to meet Vinnie, he was great. He was an amazing person. Again, that's in my previous video where I talked about the positives of this, so go watch it because there were several positives. You know, even all that wasn't very organized. It seemed like the only person that had any mindset of trying to keep this in control was actually one of the people that shouldn't. It was the guy that was taking photos for Vinnie the whole time, that I think was more part of Vinnie's crew more than the actual Expo's crew. I could be wrong on that. But the guy with like the hat and the nice camera that was kind of in control of things, and very nice guy. If you're watching this, thank you, man. Thank you. You were great. You were one of the best people on staff or helping with this event. Whoever you were amazing. And he even came out at one point and thought the photo line was done when it just stopped moving. And we were like, no, there's a good 50 or 60 of us left. And he had this look. I was like, oh crap, I gotta fix this. And he ran in the room and he got it fixed. So props to that guy. So after the photos, back to the autograph line that just like wasn't moving at all, and it was just ridiculous. People were getting mad, babies were crying, people were getting sacrificed to Satan. It was a horrible situation, and it just continued on. So finally, after this giant line, I get to the door, 20 people away from the door, and the door closes, just like the front of the Music from the Elder cover. It just closes, and there was no announcement as to why it closed or anything. And then you see some cops come around the corner and they go into the room, and everybody basically knows what's up. Vinnie's about to leave the room because it's almost time for his Q&A. But we had, at this point, all of us been in line for hours upon days, upon weeks, upon years. Somebody, conceived a kid and gave birth to it in line. That's how long it took. And we weren't having it. And there was a situation that arose at that point. The promoter came out of the room and people just started yelling at him. They just started yelling at him. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They started yelling. He yelled back. Wasn't probably the most professional guy in the world. I got video of some of this. I'm not going to post it though. I basically was filming at that point in case something really bad happened, in case there was a fight or, some real threats or somebody thrown out wrongly, something like that, and he didn't like that I was filming even. I'm not going to sugarcoat that either, but, because he acknowledged the camera. But with all that being said, it became a really bad situation. And again, the same guy I mentioned earlier, the guy with the camera and the hat and everything, he came out and could tell that things were getting bad because he could hear it from the other side of the room. And one guy in the line suggested, how about you move his Q&A and then get this line taken care of? You push his Q&A back, get the people in the line taken care of, and then you're all good, because these people in this line, myself included, weren't having it. We weren't going to miss the Q&A, one of the things we came for, and still have to be waiting in that line to eventually maybe get an autograph. Who knows at this point? And he basically said, all right, let me go talk to him. Let me go get this taken care of. And came out and he said, hey, look, I can do this for you guys. It can get moved. The one side note is he does need a food break. He's been in here a long time. Can he get lunch? And we were all okay with that. We were okay with that. He's only human, just like everyone else. And mind you, if the promoters had been in charge of things correctly, they would have brought food to him and could have just kept him in that room and got things taken care of. But then we all agreed to that. We saw Vinnie get whisked out through the audience with the police and everything. And we knew it was more of a waiting game at that point. So at that point, things were continuing to be stressful. I'm not going to lie. You know, the promoter said even at one point that the reason there was like all these problems with the line is that one guy bought 150 tickets and Vinnie Vincent had to sign 150 things. I'm sorry, there should be a cutoff for that. I don't care what it is. I mean, you might say, well, that's all money coming into Vinnie. You know, that's great. The tickets were 50 a pop and someone bought 150, but there's no way you can't tell me you don't know that guy's selling these things on eBay for more profit, okay? You can go on eBay right now and see autographs from this weekend. I guarantee a good chunk of them are from that guy, and there should be limits to that. Even on the website it said if you have a setup where you want to do several autographs, let us know and we'll set up a separate time for you, but they didn't do that, so that was pretty ridiculous. So we're done with the line discussion, but another part of this that's really important is that on the website you had to sign up for a certain time for autographs or pictures. They said this was to avoid lines and confusion and wasting your whole day. Well, guess what? When I picked up my autograph ticket earlier in the day, the guy that was doing the tickets just said, oh, we threw that out the door. The whole point of that was to avoid the lines and everything, and guess what? Since you threw it out the door, there were lines and people missed a huge amount of the expo. There were people online talking about the fact that they didn't see a single thing in the main events room outside of the Q&A because they were stuck in line the whole time, and I fall pretty close to that category. I mean, like I said, this was 7 hours. That was a good chunk of the expo gone. I didn't get hardly any cool products in the dealer room because most of the good stuff was gone by the time I got there. So there's ways to fix this though. If you are watching this and you are the promoter, you are someone putting this on, there's ways to fix this, okay? Basically, stick to your time limits and only sell so many for each limit, okay? If you have a time that's, say, 2 hours of autographs, don't sell past a certain amount. If you want to say an average of a minute per autograph, don't sell past 120 for that 2-hour mark. I mean, it's as simple as that. Now, mind you, when I got my ticket for autographs, mine was number 1900 and something, and these all had numbers of how many they'd sold. And I was there early in the day and they were continuing to sell them. So this should give you an idea of how many of these things they sold at $50 a pop, on top of your $45 to get in if you got a regular ticket, even more than that if you got a pink ticket, which was supposed to give you exclusive access to things that also never happened. And also there's of course the $300 VIP meet and greet. Then there was also the $60 per picture with the guy. I mean, there was a lot of money coming into this situation, and you think for all the money that was made, things could have been handled better. And this kind of goes full circle to something that would help eliminate a lot of these problems. Staff, 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 staff. Volunteers, 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 volunteers. But mostly staff, staff, staff. You need more staff than was there. Just honest. There was hardly any staff, it felt or seemed like we're actually working the con. I mean, there was nobody even checking that you had bought your badge at the door to actually get into the room for the most part. You could just walk in for free. And I know some people that did because I saw people and I talked to them. I said, oh, you don't have a badge, you get in for free. I basically already noticed that the doors were being, you know, not guarded at all. And they said, oh yeah, we just walked in, we heard about it, so we came down, we wanted to see Vinnie in person. That's your bread and butter, people getting in. I realized this event was sold out, even though I saw several more tickets sold at the door, but you gotta have somebody watching the door, or there's no incentive for anyone to pay for a ticket to go in. That's just common sense. That's basic event running 101. You know, that's all it is. And again, I'm trying not to be too hard on these guys that ran this because I know they're still new at this and it's obvious that they don't really know exactly what they're doing. But, you know, also on the other hand, they're still bringing us some very positive things like Vinnie Vincent and the public eye. So with all that being said, you need more staff. You know, again, with all this money that's being made, as I talked about in the previous video, you could throw a couple hundred at some people to work for the day. I honestly feel like I don't know what the division was between money going directly to Vinnie versus the promoter. I'm sure it wasn't cheap to get him out to this. I get that. I completely get that. Again, from the side where I've worked on anime conventions in particular, some of these guests can just be astronomical in that industry, and this is one that hasn't, you know, been in the public eye for over 20 years. So I get that this was probably very expensive. Very, very expensive. I mean, I would love personally to know the logistics of it, but I know those are private, it's a lot. But whatever else there is, pay your staff if you have to and have some staff that will do their job, you know? Hire some security guards if you want that aren't cops. They're expensive, but they're less than cops, and have them watch the doors. Whatever. It just was annoying and a little bit infuriating that I spent $45 to get in, yet anybody could just walk in if you waited past the time that there was that giant line to get in. That was also ridiculous. So the lines, the security, the watching things, it was bad. It was really bad. And one thing that even happened too that I thought was interesting, so I heard it through the grapevine, I didn't think it was true, and then I saw it was true, was that for whatever reason, the backline that was rented for Priss, they're a KISS tribute band, mind you, okay? Okay, so they have 2 guitars, bass, drums, vocals, right? The backline that was rented for them included a drum set and 2 guitar amps, plus the PA for the vocals and what have you. What's lacking there? Yeah, they didn't rent them a bass. They did not rent a bass amp. And apparently that was another piece of drama. You know, they weren't even sure if they'd be able to play, because you got to have bass. You got to have the gene in the band. So that was a small thing where, again, it seems like a lot of the prep work was handled by people that either didn't know better or just didn't know how to do it, period. And again, that's, you know, bring people into your fold. Bring people into your fold. Up your game on staff. And, you know, you'll probably fix a lot of these things. And that brings me to another point, and this video is getting long-winded, and I realize that, but again, I'm trying to just throw some ideas out there to make these expos better in the future. Communication would be a good one. Communication. And why I say communication is there were a lot of things that were happening throughout the day that were just never announced. People weren't told about things. You know, for example, when the door shut on the autographs, we weren't told why it was shutting until, you know, 20 minutes later. There were people in the main events room that said certain things that were scheduled, you know, differently, and everything was running late in there anyways. Things weren't announced that they were changed on schedule. People were just waiting for things all day. I mean, it was just very much a bare bones, bad event management. There's no other way to say it. But if you brought in some people that have experience with this, you know, I think you could help it out quite a bit. You know, I honestly do. And I feel though, after all of the complaints that are everywhere online, because again, this thing from some people is getting ripped apart, you're gonna have a hard time finding staff at this point, I feel. But if you hired some people that were like professionals that just kind of do this for a living, again, on the security side to watch doors, or event organizers, things like that, you probably could have a better event that would have people saying nothing but positives. Again, if you watch the previous video, I had nothing but positive to say about the Vinnie stuff. He was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And the positives of this, the highs of this were just so high, but the negatives and the lows were just so low that it just made it so hard to say this was a thoroughly enjoyable event. Now, mind you, I know there were some people that didn't do autographs and photos and just did the stuff in the main room and the dealers and what have you, and they seemed to have a good time. But everybody that had an autograph or picture ticket seemed to have a pretty bad time, at least at that part of the event. And you don't want that, okay? Again, that's your bread and butter past even the ticket sales, because these people are the ones spending more money so you can get these bigger guests like Vinnie and what have you. And you gotta appease them. You gotta treat us well. We were not treated well. We were not, okay? And if you are the promoter of this event and you're actually still watching, you know, again, not trying to be too hard, but I would love to hear what you have to say. I mean, hey, I'm just throwing it out there right now. If somehow you're watching this, I'll do a video with you. I'll do a video with you and have you set the record straight and have you prove me wrong on some future improvements that you have for this event, be it the Atlanta one or the other date that you have been talking about that is not, you know, officially announced as of the time of this recording. You know, watch by the time this gets out, it's officially announced. That's just, you know, ridiculous. But if you want to defend yourself, that's great, because I don't hate you, man. I don't want to personally attack you or anything like that, but from an attendee standpoint and from a standpoint of someone who has worked several of these type of events in the past, this was unacceptable. This was very unacceptable, the way you treated your fans and your core base that was spending the most money to make this event possible, okay? And honestly, I would love it if somehow Vinnie saw this, and if you're still watching this and you know you want to come out and say something about it, that'd be great too. I would love the guests to know how their fans were treated through the weekend, because it wasn't stellar. But with all that being said, kind of full circle, kind of like the previous video, I did have a great time meeting Vinnie, getting a picture with Vinnie. The Q&A was wonderful. Pris were amazing. Bob Kulik was amazing. I'm sure the other guests were amazing, but I don't know because I was stuck in an autograph line all day. But there's ways to improve this. There's ways to improve this. Would I go to the expo again? If there's a 2019 Atlanta KISS Expo, will I go to it? I wouldn't be opposed to it, honestly, because a lot of the events were good. I just don't know if I would honestly pay for autographs if you have a big guest or something like that. I heard that the expo you did this with Peter Criss was also kind of a disaster. I'm not sure I would, you know, spend the extra money to do the more expensive, pricey autographs. But I'd probably go to the expo. And if you do one, again, one you've been talking about that's in my town, I'll definitely go. I'll pay for it. I'll be a paying customer. I just might alter the way I enjoy it, in all honesty, and at the end of the day, give you less money because, you know, this was handled poorly, the extra stuff, the really juicy stuff. But at the end of the day, I am glad I met Vinnie. I mean, this was something I didn't think I would ever get to do, and I will weirdly thank you for that experience. Thanks for making that a thing. And I don't know. If you went to the expo and you've stuck it out this long, I know this is a long-winded video, I apologize. let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. I know a lot of people have very positive things to say. I've seen that online, but I know some people have worse things to say than me. Just try to keep the comments nice. If you throw a lot of cuss words or homophobic or racial slurs or anything, I'm gonna axe it, okay? Just gonna throw it out there. But let me know in the comments below your opinions on this matter. And if you made it this long, give the video a thumbs up. Maybe hit the subscribe button. Hit the little alarm so you get the updates. Once again, my name is Kimchi Chris. Thank you guys so much for sticking it out and listening to me babble about this event. And I'll see you guys on the next video.